Hi everyone, my name is Mija, and today I'm going to talk about how to handle multiple projects as a QA. I have been a QA at Infinum for almost 3 years now, and since Infinum is an agency, we often have the opportunity to work on many different and interesting projects, and often we need to handle them more than once at the same time. So first, I would like to start with the question, how many of you have worked on more than one project simultaneously? Okay, good. I hope that this talk will be useful for you, but I also believe that tips and tricks that I will mention are applicable for those who are handling only one project. First, I will start with introduction into this topic, then I will go through 5 main tips and tricks, and in the end, we'll wrap everything up in a conclusion. So once a month at our Infinum office in Zagreb, we have an event which is called PlayStation Petek. And this basically means that we stay in the office on Fridays after work and we play PlayStation games. I have to admit that I'm not a gamer myself, but I enjoy watching other people play. And one of the most interesting and exciting games for me is definitely Overcooked. For those unfamiliar, it is chaotic cooking simulation where you, together with your team of chefs, are trying to make a delivery. As you can see, very often there is a complete chaos. Everything is a disaster, no one knows what they are doing, delivery is not on time, there is not enough money, and there is even a fire on the stove. This situation can look familiar to you because I believe that working on multiple projects at once can often feel like trying to master Overcooked. But luckily for us, there are some strategies that can be applied both in the game and in the real life, and then success depends on teamwork, time management, and communication, and we can have a kitchen like this one, where everything is in order, the delivery is on time, there is enough money, everyone knows what they are doing, and everyone is happy. So the aim of this talk is to share my journey through the kitchen, my mistakes, and my lessons learned, so that maybe we can all handle situations like this better in the future. First, let's talk about having a mentor as your superhero. Just try to imagine being one of the chefs in the kitchen, first kitchen, and in that case, it is really hard to see a whole picture. And I also believe that probably some of you maybe didn't see some important bug, or that you poorly communicated the situation. At that point, for me at least, the panic sets in and all I want to do is to quit my job and fly to another planet. But luckily for me, I had someone with more experience to confide in, and that is when my team lead came as a superhero, or to stay in this culinary jargon, as a master chef. But in order to have this relationship work, you need to know how to talk to your mentor. First, communicate on time. At Infinum, we have our weekly one-on-ones with our team lead, and also, especially at the beginning of your career, we have daily Slack communication. Why is this important? Because your team lead is someone who can actually help you, and they can maybe make some changes in your scheduling. Second, which can be hard, is be honest. It's hard to admit that you have made a mistake, but team lead must be aware of the situation at any point, because they are the ones who will advocate for you and help you. And also, in this way, you can more easily, together with them, identify your weak points and improve yourself. Second thing, give realistic estimates. And remember, you shouldn't promise a stew in an hour when it clearly needs 3. This one was particularly hard for me at the beginning because I wanted to have a happy client, and then I promised unrealistic estimations. I would like to share one example with you, and that is when my client asked me to have done regression testing in a week. And although I was new on the project and new in this whole IT world, and I wasn't familiar with test cases, and I was only half-time on the project, I agreed to that. In the end, that of course led me to unnecessary stress and overtime, and then I realized that I need to change something. So I went back to my superhero, and together with my team lead, we came up with this formula that helped me to better estimate. First, try to calculate the exact time if it is possible. And by that, I really mean taking your phone and calculating the time you need for example, regression testing. Then, as we heard also in the previous presentation, add a buffer because things doesn't go the way we plan them to go, and I believe that we are all aware of that. And then you also need to be aware of that this estimation is not set in stone, and you need to continue to observe the situation. So if anything changes, you also need to change your estimation. In the end, I came up with 40 hours, but I still needed to communicate that this means that I will need 2 weeks because I was half-time on the project and not 1 week. Third thing that I would like to mention is to communicate clearly. And here I will ask for some help from Paul Grice, who was a famous linguist and who proposed 4 maxims that should be followed in order to have successful communication. So let's see whether these maxims can help us in our everyday life. First maxim is maxim of quantity, which says that speakers should provide just enough information to facilitate the conversation, neither too much nor too little. We should keep that in mind during our daily meetings because, as we all know, these meetings should last for about 15 minutes and we should share only the most important updates and blockers. This meeting shouldn't be transformed in backlog refinements or technical meetings, which happens a lot. The second thing that is probably familiar to all of you is when you find a critical bug, as we all know, usually right before the release. And now you have the delicate situation that you need to communicate with the rest of your team. First, share the priority of the bug, because in that way you will get the attention of your teammates. Then give a short description without going into too many details, because in that case you will lose that attention. And in the end, share impact on a user and the project's timeline, and also share the effort to fix it if you already know it, because in that way you will have information how to handle this bug. In other words, avoid too much sugar in your cakes and too many details during the daily. The second maxim is maxim of quality, which says that speakers should be truthful and provide information that is supported by evidence. This one is especially useful when you are giving estimations, because if you have arguments behind your estimations, you will have more self-esteem when giving it, and also your colleagues won't feel a need to challenge you, because they will understand why you gave the number that you did. Third maxim is maxim of relation, which says that speakers should provide relevant information that is important to the conversation. So if you work on more than one project, you will have so many topics and issues on your mind, and you will want to resolve everything today, but that is impossible. You need to make a list, then prioritize these topics and see what need to be communicated and handled today and what you need to leave for tomorrow. And finally, maxim of manner, that states that speakers should communicate in a clear, concise, and orderly manner, avoiding ambiguity and obscurity. Again, one example from my experience, at one point I had 3 dailies in a day, and that was really pretty hard to follow all the topics. And then it was really useful for me when I started taking notes before the meetings, because in that way I could have more clear thoughts and share those thoughts in a more concise way with my teammates. And in the end, I would like to add one more, which I called Mija's maxim, and this one says that if necessary, repeat yourself. So if you have information that is crucial for you and for the project, don't be afraid to repeat it. You may feel like a parrot, or you may be afraid that you are boring, but in the end, you cannot expect from other people that they will remember everything that they heard immediately. So you need to make them, you need to be sure that they are all aware of it. In my case, when I came up with that number of 2 weeks for regression testing, I mentioned it during the daily, during the next daily, before the release, before the next release, because it was really important for me and for the project's timeline and planning that we are all aware of that. So I managed to do that. And now let's embrace turning on your focus mode, which can be hard sometimes if you work on multiple projects, but in my opinion, it is necessary and it is the only right way, because slicing onions, making smoothies, and baking eggs simultaneously can only result in banana-flavored eggs salted with tears. In other words, if you are trying to debug something, answer calls, and be on a meeting at the same time, it will result with chaos and disaster, that's definitely. So, how to avoid this context switching? First, set your Slack status to busy and turn off notifications. You may feel guilty while doing this because you are not responding immediately, but let's be honest, we are not surgeons and we are not pilots, and people can wait for our response. Nothing bad will happen and no one will die. And I also believe that people will rather wait for a detailed answer than to get a rushed one. Second thing, if you are working in an open space like this one, put on your headphones. In this case, your colleagues will see that you are trying to concentrate and that you don't have time to chit-chat. And in the end, plan your day in advance and put everything in the calendar. So for me, it was a really game changer when I started to put dedicated time slots for each project, because I could more easily visualize my day and be calmer in that way, but also my colleagues could see when I'm working on their project and when I'm trying to focus on something else. And in my opinion, people really respect that. And also in this way, you can more easily avoid ad hoc meetings, so that's great. And finally, the thing that we are all trying to avoid, I believe, but as it is necessary for the developers with their README file and comments in the code, I also believe that it is a non-negotiable part for the QA, because like spices in a stew, documentation will guide you through, and keep that in mind. I also believe that you can learn how to love yourself through documentation. First, try to imagine a situation where you are testing something that you firstly tested a few weeks or months ago, and it worked at that time, but today is not working. And you will probably feel panic because you will thought that you maybe missed something during the first testing, but luckily for you, you can go then to that task and see in the documentation and in the comments how everything was expected to work and how it really worked. Now you can relieve and with completely being honest and confident in yourself, say that something broke after that and that you didn't miss anything. Because of that, you in the present are the one who can write the best documentation. You are now the most familiar with the feature, you know all the technical details, and you will be the most creative and write the best edge cases. And finally, it will come a day when you will need to leave your project and onboard your new colleague. And in that case, having well-written documentation can really be useful. For me, it was great when I wrote some sort of cookbook that was actually a handbook for my project, where I wrote down all the information I could think of. So I listed all the people on the project who should be contacted for which issue. I gave some advices regarding the estimations. Basically, I wrote all way of working that I could think of. And that really helped my colleague to take over the kitchen from me without too many doubts. And now let's wrap everything up in a conclusion. As I said at the beginning, when you need to handle more than one project at a time, it can often feel like trying to navigate through chaotic kitchen of Overcooked. But luckily for us, if we follow some of the strategies, everything will be good in the end. First and most important for both the game and the real life is teamwork, time management, and communication. Also, don't forget that you have someone who is looking your back, that's your superhero mentor, and please give honest estimations because this is really vital for juggling projects. Be brave and embrace your focus mode. Although this can be hard sometimes, it is crucial for maximizing productivity. And in the end, although we want to avoid it, don't, and document like a pro because you will leave a recipe for success for the person that will come after you. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by too many projects, just stop, take a deep breath, channel your inner chef, and ask yourself, who is your superhero? And thank you. Are there any questions?
Sometimes it might happen that you don't have any work, for example, this week, but next week on all project they dump on you a bunch of tasks. How do you deal with that?
Yes, it usually happens like that. And whenever you say, I don't have enough work to do, you know what will happen next. Well, yes, I always go to my team lead, and the honest communication is the most important. Now I learned that. Before I didn't say anything, and I always said I will manage to do everything, but you need to say honestly. I mean, they know that you are not full-time on the project, and if you say I have this and this to work on this project and this to work on that, I hope that they will understand, but because they cannot expect that someone who is half-time on the project will manage to do work that is managed for a full-time person on the project.
On how many projects you worked at once, and which of these maxims you used to handle, like all that stress you had?
The biggest number was 3. Yes, it's a combination of all of this actually. But this one that I added, like repeating yourself, that was actually something that helped me a lot because I always thought, I mean, I mentioned it during the daily, everyone are aware of that. But no, because people have so many things on their mind, and in the same way as you are working on 3 or 2 projects, also someone else's, and it is hard for them to remember. So yes, if you need to repeat, I'm half-time on the project, I will today work in the afternoon on your project, I mean, you need to repeat it because it's important that you are aware of that, but also that they are aware of that. So you are taking care for both, for you and for them in that way.
Do you usually work on the projects if there are 2 at the same day, or did you split them on
in the same day?
Same day?
Because it's hard for me to come to a daily and say that yesterday I was only working on 1. So yes, for me it's usually half day for one thing and half day for the second thing.
And splitting them.
Yes.
I mean, I'll just say I'm not gonna work today, and
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Well, probably that
It's
is
much
better.
easier.
Yes, and
I
you
can focus better.
Yes. I still need to work on some of the improvements.